A lot of myths in there, Abhishek, but I'll bust one major myth over
Uh,
there. See, the myth is
sure.
that AI can do everything. I think that's the biggest myth. AI,
Right.
which is kind of slightly, I would say, contextual and reasoning approach basically to deal with something. A lot of times, AI fails on day one.
Hello, everyone. I am Abhishek Srivastava. I am from Global R and today we are going to do a podcast on the topic which is very close to my heart and a topic which is going to appeal to a large audience. The topic is AI in the real world, transforming businesses and user experiences. And for this, we have with us a truly inspired leader in the world of digital transformation and customer success, Mr. Abhishek Srivastava. Mr. Abhishek has over 15 years of diverse experiences across pre-sales, consulting, product implementation, and client onboarding. He has become a trusted name when it comes to leveraging AI and digital technologies to solve real-world business problems. He currently serves as the Director of Customer Success at a large AI company, where he oversees strategic accounts across India and Southeast Asia, helping organizations adopt cutting-edge generative AI solutions. His portfolio includes impactful projects like deploying AI-powered voice bots for large-scale surveys, implementing multilingual speech analytics platforms, and also driving massive cost savings for Fortune 500 clients. Abhishek holds an engineering degree from Vishveshwaraya Technological University and an MBA from Liverpool John Moores University. He is also PMP and COPC certified, which demonstrates his deep commitment to operational excellence and customer centric innovation. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome someone who blends deep technical know how, the strong sense of human centered design, and business strategy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Abhishek Srivastava to this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Abhishek. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Uh, I've heard about Global Harab, pretty much now, and good company to work associated with for that matter. Let's start. Let's dive into it.
Sure. Thanks a lot. So, Abhishek, just to begin, we'll love to know about your journey, how you transitioned from engineering to customer success, and now you are in a digital solutions leadership role. So, why this change and what drew you towards the AI space?
All right. So good question and a very long answer to it. I'll keep it short. So I started my journey from a startup company where I kind of got to work in variety of, let's say, roles. It was a multi-hatting kind of engagement over there. So I used to work in, let's say, sales, as a business analyst for some times, as a product manager if it is required. Because we were a 15, 20 man team, I think there was lack of resources, so we had to wear multiple hats. So that's where I kind of got into it. So I had no defined, I would say, skill set in my career until that point in time, the first 4 5 years, because the startup company had to do everything basically. So that gave me a broader view of the business. I mean, how the entire thing works from, let's say, from your lead generation to kind of lead closing, and then what happens, let's say, in the remaining areas of business. So that kind of laid that base foundation for me to kind of have, let's say, a glimpse of various roles in there. From there, I moved to other companies where I kind of specialized into pre-sales. So I think after that first stint, my remaining career has been into pre-sales up until 2014, where I was heavily into, let's say, your digital tech, your risk consultancy, advisory, those kind of services. My first let's say experience in terms of digital in general came across in 2016 when when I joined a small company that got acquired into Genpact. And that is when the journey started. And so that's where I got exposed to technologies like mobile app development, your RPA, conversational AI for that matter was my first taste of conversational AI came over there in that company. So I spent about 5 6 years over there, and from there, my career has been predominantly into the AI as a domain. The work has been in a domain. Now, from that company, when I moved to my next company, again a startup, I kind of, I kind of moved into a customer success role simply because I think that new company which I was going to work for was looking at somebody who could do the pre-sales part of it. That's basically consulting. Understood basically how the entire life cycle of customer works, and from there, I think I moved towards customer success in general. So from 2020 onwards, I've been purely into customer success. But prior to that, my experience did contain elements of customer success in general. So that's how my transition came, let's say, from being into a startup to a pre-sales to eventually a customer success, which is like a confluence of multiple, let's say, skills over there. So being in startups I mean, kind of helped a lot in getting to where I am today. Go ahead, please.
Sure. That's an interesting take, actually. And I think our viewers will see your journey as an inspiration for their own careers. So let's move ahead.
Hmm.
So, for our viewers who don't understand the world of AI chat much, to tell them what exactly is an AI chatbot and how does it work behind the scenes? Because I think a lot of people have been seeing the usage of AI chatbot over the past few years, but they want to know the intricacies of how does it work.
Okay, so without going too into technical, I'll keep it to a level
Yeah,
where somebody as a novice user can understand. So, see,
sure.
in general, and I'm sure you have seen chatbots, on all these websites, and there's normally a widget that pops up, and you can type something, and the bot responds. So, how does it work? So, the way it works is, in simple terms, it whatever input you give to the bot, that is what you type in the bot to get a response from. I think that essentially is taken, it's processed, and there's a response that comes out. Now, in between from what goes in to what comes out, there are some basic stuff, basic steps that happens basically. So the first step essentially is bot has to understand what the user is saying, and that constitutes a part of
Right.
what you call as natural language understanding. So normally humans talk in natural language, the way you and I are interacting, and that language goes into the bot, and bot tries to
Right.
understand and make sense of what the user is saying. That's a very basic, let's say, capability of a bot, AI or otherwise for that matter. Now, basically, once it goes and it understands, okay, so let's say I want to buy a car. Essentially, the user is trying to convey that he wants to buy something, and what he or she would want to buy is a car. So it's able to demarcate the way that what user is saying. Now, once they understand what it's trying to say, now in this case, there would be either a structured flow in the backend which says, okay, if somebody want to buy a car, somebody would have to come to a, let's say, somebody has to see all those models, show them all the models, ask them to select a model which they would want to buy, ask them to, let's say, pay for it, or take a test drive if they would want to, then pay for it, and then essentially close the deal. I'm keeping it very simple in terms of how the flow works, but this is like a structured approach where, let's say, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have to have in, let's say, sequence. There would also be, let's say, a GPT based, let's say, backend where the model broadly understands the context and is able to, let's say, engage in an organic conversion with the customer, with anybody who's using the bot for that matter, customer, no customer. So that's the logic understanding part of it. So basis the logic, the conversion can run. Now, what happens is, once the bot understands that, okay, this is the intent, this is the logic. Now bot has to
Okay.
generate responses, and these
Understood.
responses basically are called as, the tech is called as natural language generation. So in case of, let's say, a structured bot where the flow is structured, the responses normally are scripted. So
Right.
if you say, for that matter, somebody wants to buy a car, so the first response you can script is, okay, I understand you. Give me a car make and model which you want to buy, or let's say, give me the car make, let's say, or let's say, which brand of car would you want to buy, something like
Understood.
that. This is the response, and basis that the conversion can then flow
Right.
subsequently, right? In the case of GPT, it's the same thing. However, that is more organic. It's not scripted. So that's a natural language generation piece of it. Now, after
Right.
that, what happens is, once you do this back and forth, and the bot is able to now converse, the last part is that essentially you kind of, also in the back end keep tuning the bot to give better responses next time. You learn. So now what
Right.
happens is, at
Much like a human.
much like a
Much
human,
like a human.
much like a baby for that matter. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I would rather kind of focus on the babies or toddlers from age, let's say, 2 to 7, because predominantly of, let's say, learning for a individual happens at that age.
True.
Exactly the same way. That's how it works. So it's NLP followed by, let's say, your logic, followed by your generating a response to it, and followed by learning. It's a learning cycle. So
I'm
I'm
sure there
I'm
must.
hoping that helps.
Yeah, it does help. I hope our viewers are also trying to get some ideas on how they can, go into specific areas of how a chatbot works and maybe find something relevant with where they want to do research.
Sure.
Right. So okay. I was also thinking that a lot of people, who use this term artificial intelligence don't
Hmm.
really understand too much about it and sometimes confuse it with automation or some other kind of traditional software, they
Mm-hmm.
don't really understand that difference. That what is automation, what is
Got it.
artificial intelligence. To a
Right.
general, student or a parent, or even a graduate student, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
confuse it, right? So, how do you think we can, no, they can, clear this confusion? How can they differentiate
Right.
in that?
So, see, before I answer the question, let me also kind of say that AI to some extent can automate some things. It's not so. It's not like an all. It's not like there's a black and white, truly demarcated difference in the two. But broadly, when we talk in enterprise terms, automation essentially means that there are, let's say, 5 steps to be followed. Let's say,
Right.
and again, take an example of car for that matter. You take the car, you look at what car model you would want to buy, take a test drive, pay for it, go home. One, two, three, four, five. These are 5 structured steps. Now, what happens is that automation essentially runs through these steps without having any context of what is happening. It has to
Right.
execute. Okay, so one, two, three, four, five, for that matter, even any BPO company for that matter, when they run these backend processes, like for that matter, check clearance, or for that matter, invoicing, where the agent or individual who is processing those checks doesn't need to know for what that check is meant for or the who the check is meant for. As long as
Right.
they are part of, let's say, one step of, let's say, check clearances is verification of the actual amount. That does the value in the check. I mean, does the amount in there is basically lesser than what is there in the account balance. Now that's a simple task. For that task to happen, the individual doesn't know to whom the check is being processed for, what's the reason, what's the use. So it's just following steps. Now AI, on the other hand, and I'm talking real world AI, which is there today, not probably 5 years back. In today's sense, AI has a broader context of what that entire process is meant for, and it may get to the end goal, need not be through those series of steps. Need
Right.
not be, it can be, it has context of what is happening. It understands that here are the broad 5 steps to be followed. It may follow those steps and reach the end state, may not be in exact same way. So what I'm trying to understand,
So,
what I'm trying to say here is that traditional automation was more of a structured thing where you had some steps to be followed. AI broadly has more context of what is happening around it. It has more data. I mean, in terms of it has learned from the past basically. So you have ready-made models today that can execute these tasks while probably in a much more efficient manner, in a
right.
much more, let's say, non-linear manner. So that's a broad difference between AI.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So to shorten your answer, what we can say is AI is concerned about the goal, and it has context about the steps, but the goal is the ultimate objective, and it might use the steps or might deviate from those specified steps, but it will achieve its objective.
Yeah, just to kind of keep it clear, I think apart from that, just to keep it distinct, so somebody who is executing one, two, three, or 5 steps has no inference or no
Right.
reasoning. AI could have reasoning. It could
Right.
have, let's say, inferencing of what is happening over there. If, let's say, somebody wants to digress from those 5 steps and go to a 7th step somewhere else in the interim, AI can handle it. Probably, automation may not be able to handle it unless it is scripted over there. So that's the reason. That's the difference, basically. So a brain is a pattern seeking machine.
Good.
AI is like a pattern seeking machine that works.
Got it.
Hmm.
So let's move ahead a bit,
Hmm.
and uh, I just wanted to talk about conversational AI also
Hmm.
with you, because you have deployed voice bots at scale.
Hmm.
So, could you explain some real world project that had made significant impact in the field of conversational AI and voice bots?
For the sake of time, I'll limit it to one. But yeah,
Sure.
so I had recently done a project for a very large political party in India that we were running elections for.
Right.
And as you know, right, a lot of these surveys that come
Right.
in elections, where you take samples of use of, let's say, folks in, let's say, a specific region. I would say, let's say, take an example of state, Karnataka state for that matter, and you have so many, I think, some 200 plus constituencies over here. So they run surveys to see which party is having the, let's say, foothold in the region, in what region, that way. And
Right.
normally these surveys are run through foot on the street. That is, people who go on the street and they interview people one to one, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We did the same thing using voice bots. And in terms of impact, what happened was that while there's a limitation of how many humans you can deploy to talk to humans at one-to-one level, the
Right.
and the data is less. In this case, the data was significantly more. And so you had a much
Okay.
clear picture of that parties, let's say, dominance in certain areas with much more precision, much more clarity. So this is the impact of AI, that AI can help you scale things, basically, which probably the humans may not be able to do it. So this is a very I would say live example, and we did the same thing for, let's say, other regions as well. I mean, we did the same for national election as well, for that matter. The scale which comes with AI is pretty huge, especially in the case of India.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. And I hope the party which used this
Mhm.
was able to leverage this data to its advantage.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah. All right. So let's say if we talk about school students, right?
Hmm.
Students who are just and have started interacting with AI and voice bots,
Hmm.
uh, what would you recommend to them about the tools or platforms that they can use to get started in this field and get themselves acquainted with the know-how of
See,
how they operates in the real world?
somebody would want to start off on, let's say, a very very basic bot. There are a
Yeah.
variety of tools, on the internet. I mean, if you go and do a search, you'll find. But I would recommend Google Dialogflow, which basically has a very
Okay.
very clean interface. Somebody who's willing to start the work basically can have flows configured over there, can do your basic intent mapping over there, can have keywords over there. So that's one tool I could recommend. Somebody who's probably a bit more advanced can look at Azure Studio to build the bots basically. Somebody,
Right.
let's say, who is slightly more, let's say, tech, let's say, averse, can probably use something like a replica or scratch basically, for that matter. So there are a variety of tools in the market today, depending upon how a student is. And I'm assuming a student, you're referring to student, somebody who is not probably tech savvy so much, but he understands tech to some extent, he or she. So let's say
Right.
somebody who's good in Python can probably use a combination of Python, let's say, ChatGPT, the API is available free of cost for that matter, to build a very
Right.
basic bot. There's no problem whatsoever in
Right.
that case. Plethora of tools, Abhishek.
Right. Right. Thank you for
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
great insight. Okay, let's talk about some challenges that you face when you implement AI technologies in customer-facing environments. Why I'm asking this question is because you have been
Hmm.
a part of customer success
Hmm.
in your career. So I think nobody better than you to answer, how we can leverage AI in this particular environment.
Yeah. So I think, see, okay, so let me take a step back and understand. When you say challenges, I mean, I'm assuming that what you referred to essentially is what are the difficulties basically, right? I mean, from that point of view.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
right.
Correct.
So what happens is, see, the moment somebody says AI in somebody's head, what happens is that they think that AI is going to be the panacea for everything, right? And so the first step itself is to debunk that myth and say, no, AI is probably going to solve for let's say some use case that is basically a huge use case, but it's not going to be panacea. It's not going to do everything. It's not going to do it all. Okay. So first step is to debunk that myth. Let's say when anything starts, you have to first look at what use case they would want to deploy. There itself, there's a
Right.
problem because not every use case is built for AI. Some use cases, for that matter, can be solved by simple linear, let's say, flows, automation, for that matter. They can be solved over there. But if you try to force
Right.
fit them into an AI, it becomes a big challenge, because then it doesn't give you an expected result. So that itself is a big, let's say, a stumbling block. Then comes issue of data. Do you have data in the way, in the shape and form that, let's say, your bot would want to consume? For that matter, if you look
Right.
at the bot is a synchronous, let's say, entity. You are having a conversation with the bot in real time, right? So data has to flow in real time, has to be fast. Otherwise, the experience goes down, or the use case goes down. Now, the data is not in the structured shape and form, then the use case fails on day one itself. There could be issues in terms of data with terms of bias. Data could be biased. And so
Right.
what is going to give flawed responses, or may not be, let's say, let's say completely correct, or completely, let's say sensitive to what somebody is asking over there. For that matter, so that's one big problem in terms of data bias, for that matter. Then comes the compute, the infrastructure. Right now, majority of folks, when they start looking at AI, they don't really consider the amount of computation that is required to run today's systems. While I would say from last 5 years, there has been significant progress made in terms of the compute itself. I mean, the amount of compute that's required to run a bot. For an enterprise level bot, the amount of infra is pretty significant. And that's a major part of the cost. So essentially, a lot of projects
I'm
go
sure.
into a dump because they overrun the, let's say, budgets on day one itself. Okay, so that's another challenge for that matter. Now, let's say apart from that, so when I say data, I mean earlier, if you just recall,
So
oh,
since you sorry to
go
interrupt
ahead,
you.
go
So
ahead.
since you mentioned that you overshoot your budget on day one itself, is it
Mhm,
because there are not enough people in the company who understand AI that much, and they are
mhm,
devising this AI strategy? And because certain we expect that somebody who understands AI and the implications and the infrastructure that goes with it
mhm,
would
mhm,
know the cost challenges that will occur, or the data accuracy and data bias should not be there.
mhm,
And still these problems are occurring.
mhm.
So one would want to assume that there is less AI understanding overall
Yes,
in the
that's actually
companies.
true to a lot of extent. But let me give you an example of how that issue comes about to be. So I'll take an example of bank.
Okay.
Now, on day one,
Okay.
somebody from bank would say, "Okay, I want to build a customer servicing chatbot." That's what they would say,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Now, on day two, they would call a vendor and they say, "Okay, I want to build a chatbot. Give me a proposal." That happens. You give proposal. Now, in that
Okay.
stage, now on day one, they would have said, "Okay, I'll do this. Let's say for 50 crores." I'm just saying, a rough number for that matter. Now, what
Right.
happens is now on day two, you start to realize, no, 50 crores was mainly they had estimated from the point of view of effort, or let's say the entire life cycle of the project. But they didn't realize that that by being a bank, data has to be on their premises to comply with the local regulatory norms, right? Now, what happens is
Okay.
they say, okay, you deploy your entire solution on my infrastructure, in my cloud, or in my, let's say, hard servers. So either you have to procure the hard servers, metal and bone servers, basically for that matter, or they have to have a cloud system over there. Now, imagine that if you have, let's say, taken, let's say, 1x the cost initially, that turns to 1.5x. So let's say from 50 crores, you go straight to 75 crores as a part of the total cost. The budget overruns happen right there, exactly. So you've not put anything in there, but even from the point
Yeah.
of view of evaluating a project, your budget overrun has already happened. And then what happens?
Understood.
Because people don't understand AI, they don't realize that while you can think theoretically of a solution, you need to have data pipelines built. Now, once you
Right.
get into, let's say, evaluation stage, you realize, okay, I need to integrate my bot, let's say, 8 different systems in the enterprise for the data to flow back and forth, right? Now, what happens is
Correct.
those data integrations may not be there on day one. And so before you actually start doing the AI piece of it, you have to have these data integrations built. And that increases the time,
Absolutely.
and then correspondingly your effort goes increases, and then your cost increases. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the challenges are there at every step, and these challenges come because people don't really understand the concept of AI as a full life cycle. You can read theory, but unless you have delivered a full project and you know how it works end to end, it is difficult to estimate for the cost completely. So the
Yeah, yeah,
buyers
I
are not
truly
really,
understand.
yeah, buyers are not really truly AI aware today. That's the whole reason.
That's a actual real life use case that you explained, which I hope our viewers will also be able to understand. How AI or any other technology, for that matter, can pose
Has to
problems
work.
when
Yes.
you
Hmm,
go into production
hmm.
and when you face the real world. Yeah, so let's move on. I would also want to ask you about the myths that people have about AI. So, any particular myth that you think has been predominant across the industry, whether it's stakeholders, any industry, if
Hmm.
you want to talk about any one myth that people have.
Myth. There are a lot of myths in there, Abhishek, but I'll bust one major myth over
Uh,
there. See, the myth is that
sure.
AI can do everything.
Uh,
I think that's the biggest myth. So what happens is when somebody buys an AI system,
okay.
they think that, see, what happens is traditionally people have delivered solutions or have bought systems which works on API
Mhm.
integration, or let's say two systems talking to each other. So X says
Right.
what's your account balance, the Y system gives an account balance, and the transaction is done. That's the simplest of the entire thing.
Right.
It doesn't fail
Mhm.
majority of times unless there's a breakage in the integration. Straightforward. But
Right.
with AI,
Right.
which is kind of slightly, I would say, contextual and reasoning approach, basically, to deliver something, a lot of times AI fails on day one and it has to be trained again and again and again so that it reaches a certain amount of accuracy. People don't understand this part and they think from day one, my AI will give me the highest ROI possible because it's an AI system. It's a panacea. And that is the myth that have you have to bust in this in the initial cycle itself, saying that it doesn't work that way. It's a long-term game for AI adoption. It's not on day one that you get the ROI from AI. So that's the biggest myth
It,
which is
they think, yeah, that they might think that it is like magic.
yeah, and I'll tell you what, Chat GPT is a so Chat GPT as a standalone system versus Chat GPT in enterprise works very differently. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
so that's the cause of that myth basically.
So, okay, let's go ahead. And I also wanted to understand from
Mhm.
you, if let's say, how a voice bot understands what someone is saying. I know we talked about it,
Earlier, yeah.
briefly before also.
Hmm.
Just to go a little deeper, and how it understands, for example, I say, and how it replies to that. You mentioned about NLP before.
Hmm.
So, would you want to just, for the sake of our viewers, just explain it in a little more detail?
Okay, so before the NLP piece comes the ASR piece. So what happens is, if you look at the voice bot, you're talking to somebody on a phone essentially. There's a bot playing around. So you are
Right,
talking in like you and how you and I are talking, right? So it's a
right,
speech audio that goes inside.
right,
Audio is an analog signal, has to be converted to digital first. Okay,
right,
so essentially you sample the audio and then you convert like how you convert probably a song to an MP3. Same way, convert to digital.
right,
Convert to digital, then you have to break it down. So what happens is, let's say I say a word called cat. Now, the spelling is CAT, but when you say it,
right,
it's K-A-T, right? That's
correct,
how it works. So you kind of break those individual words. So first we break the entire audio down into small chunks of audio. That's 20 millisecond in that chunk. Each chunk normally would correspond to one word because 20 milliseconds is normally the rate of speech that you kind of work with. Now, once you have that KRT broken down, you realize KRT corresponds to cat, and that's how you reconstruct words and identify this is the word that is spoken. Okay,
right,
now once you have the word spoken, then you kind of stitch back the entire sentence together for the system to understand. So now your audio is now converted to text. Okay, once you have the text, that is when the NLU part comes in. So you say, okay, I like this cat. Let's say something like that, and then this is then it then works like like a seems like a chatbot. So it goes into the system. There's a response that is given over there. It's called NLG, natural response generation. Once the response is generated, now what happens is that essentially feeds into something called as TTS, text to speech. Okay, and the text to speech goes back to the user and then it's converted to an actual audio and then the person listens to it. That's how the cycle works. The biggest thing in terms of how the voice bot works is the most important part is two things. First thing, how clean is your conversion from your audio to text. The more, I mean, the better that conversion is, the more cleaner it is, the more accurate it is, the more accurate your voice bot is. And second part is how accurately or how better you have trained your bot for accuracy. And so would be the your responses to the customer, which or user who's using the bot. The two main important things in a voice bot essentially. Otherwise, it works like a chatbot.
understood. Understood. I think you explained it pretty clearly. I am
Mhm.
sure even students who are in grade 6, 7, 8 will also be able to understand it.
Sure, thanks.
So, okay, let's move on. I wanted to discuss about the adoption of generative AI technologies, since
Mm-hmm.
this is now a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a director of customer success, how
Mm-hmm.
do you guide clients who want to adopt this generative AI technology? And especially talk about those clients who are new to the world of AI.
So first things first, you have to educate them what an AI can do.
Right.
That's a first, and
Right.
that's like a big effort in there. But then
Yeah.
once you've explained to them what an AI can do in their context, you look at the right use case.
Mm.
Now they may be having some 10 use cases in the head, which they want to use the AI for. You kind of shuffle through all the use cases, filter them, and see what is the best fitment for the AI use case. And I'm keeping it simple basically so that folks can understand. I'm not going to into the details of it. So once you figure out, okay, this is the use case that's the best fit for the AI for that matter, you look at, okay, do you have data for it? That's point number three.
Okay.
And then what you do is essentially you kind of you understand from the customer, the user, what is the end goal they're looking at. The end goal, for that matter, let's say somebody would say, I would want, let's say, I want to reduce 50 headcount in my team. I'm just saying, through some kind of a, let's say, AI. Now, if that is the end goal, then that's the end goal. Or somebody can say, I want to have an increase in my sales. I want to like increase in my service, for that matter, what I've done earlier, a much larger scale of service. So you have the end goal and you quantify it using a metric, saying that before, today I'm doing it 1%, tomorrow I'll do it 5%. That's my end goal, basically, right? That's my. So once you have the end goal, then you start working on, okay, whether you have data or not. If data is available, you kind of integrate everything over there, build the bot, and then once somebody starts using the bot, you sensitize them that day one is not so much. You have to tune the bot, and then that's how the cycle works, and then essentially you get that number. The most important part here is that you have the success metric established, and you chase that metric relentlessly, irrespective of what is happening. And second part is the fitment of the solution to an AI use case. I think once those two things are taken care of, I think your entire solution will fall in place.
Got it. So, Abhishek, you have handled many customer accounts. Some of them might run into millions of dollars also.
Mhm.
So, how does AI factor into long-term client success and return on investment? Because I think every client must be looking for ROI even before they get started, right?
Majority of
So,
them,
have
yes.
you seen that part of yeah, that sort of success?
So Abhishek, to be honest with you, I have worked for at least let's say 30, 40 customers at least minimum in the last 7 to 8 years,
Right,
in terms of live
right.
deployments. I'm talking end to end. Now, what I've
Uh-huh.
seen is only probably a handful, I can count on my fingers probably, is the number of customers who
Okay.
actually realized value from an AI. See, everybody wants to do AI today because everybody wants to be that guy who brought in AI in the system, right? Very few people actually look at the AI from the ROI perspective truly, and they bring in AI system. Majority of them they want to buy it because it's a shiny new toy. But in terms of what drives other
Yeah, they
customers,
want to meet their KPIs.
yes. So they want to say, okay, I am the guy, I am the leader, I got the AI in the system. Here is my AI. It doesn't matter what's the ROI it's given. So very few leaders or very few folks are cognizant of the fact that AI can give ROI, but only when there's a certain fine print to it. The fine print there is scale has to be there. If you're looking to basically solve for some problem, like in the case of surveys for that matter, Indian population is huge. If you're going to do surveys at that scale, it's going to give an ROI because you can't have human agents calling those people in there to get feedback, right? So scale is one of the most important parts that gives an ROI. Second part is in terms of whether that use case is fit or not. So majority of these folks basically they don't understand what they're using the AI for. They bring in AI to get an ROI, but what they end up getting probably as a side thing is a better experience for the customers. So I think what happens is AI is essential for any company from here onwards. It's going to be a part of every company's portfolio simply because every other one is doing it, so they can't be left behind, right? But AI truly has become one of the important parts in any company's roadmap. If they don't adopt it, especially a mid-size or a large-size company, they are going to fall back because of the kind of scale it gives to them to grow and the kind of impact it has on the customers. So I think
Right.
those are two key points.
That's great.
Yeah,
So, okay, Abhishek, a couple of questions before we close because we are
sure.
running out of time.
Yeah, I know.
So, so we'll just talk about ethics. Have you ever seen AI system make a mistake,
Uh,
and how do you make sure that things don't happen when it comes to affecting real people?
so ethics are definitely one of the biggest parts of the entire, let's say, AI system, and I'll keep it limited to one particular aspect of ethics. I mean, it's a huge answer, but I'll keep it. See, from bias standpoint, your
Sure.
data has to be clean, right? So let's say you are basically, let's say, having a bot that suggests, let's say, specific occupation to certain individual. I'm just saying, right? Now, if you have trained the system with mainly data from engineering students, it'll probably be biased towards recommending engineering as an occupation to some of the students. Instead of, I mean, while the student may be
Right.
good at, let's say, some other, let's say, it may have some other skills. So that bias is one of the biggest problems in AI today, and data has to be really clean
Got
so
it.
that your I mean, data is it data that you use a system to train with. The training data has to be really
Right.
clean for the system to be giving a very clear and very, let's say, unbiased answers over there. Secondly, when anything goes wrong in AI system, you need to have a human intervention so that the human can take corrective action to correct that response over there to some extent. I think that cycle, the learning cycle, is very important over there. So those are two key things in terms of
Understood.
having ethical AI in there, I think.
Okay, Abhishek, so I just wanted to know from you, because you have mentored students in the edtech space and
Mm-hmm.
also worked with them. So,
Mm-hmm.
any advice that you want to give to these students, young students especially, who want to start learning about AI? What would you want to tell them?
A lot of things, but I think I would say start with your basics. I think in terms of mathematics, I think the math is the one that lays foundation to your entire AI thing.
Okay.
Things like linear algebra, your quadratic stuff, basically, for that matter, your Markov chains, things like that. I think those things are the foundational mathematics for what you see today in AI. So having a
Right.
sense of that would really help. That's one. Second part is, your understanding of what is happening from coding standpoint in today. So tech like Python, I mean, language like Python is important. PyTorch, those platforms. I think having in our case, Abhishek, if you recall, we got exposed to these things probably later stage in life. I think
Correct.
and I think probably somewhere in the engineering stage, probably a little bit before that. But
Even
these
later,
kids,
in some,
even later.
yeah, yeah,
Now, kids today are using Alexa today, even 5 years old, and know how to use Alexa today. So they can expose to
absolutely.
AI from very early stage. I think, and it's very
Correct.
important that they correlate that to what they're doing in their education system. While the
Right.
system is not really meant for that, or it's not tailored towards it today, but it's very important to get their exposure up early, without going towards the rat race piece. I think it's important to, if somebody is really keen for AI as a career, right, having exposure to things like your tech is very important, maths is very important. I would also emphasize a lot of it probably later in the game, but then in terms of how somebody interacts with AI, that's the behavioral part of the entire thing. So if let's say like see the folks who the kids who are today, let's say I would say toddlers for that matter, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years old for that matter, I would say they are digital AI natives. They know how to work with stuff like Alexa, and so they know how they're talking to systems over there. I think that's very important, that they also kind of they understand this point that when they're building the systems for humans, and so
Correct.
understanding the human behavior, human, let's say, psychology is very important as well. So a confluence of these two skills, the tech part and the human behavior part, eventually leads to something that is really a scalable system that works well with humans. Technology wise, it is apt, and I think it's a full package. I think that's very important. So
Wow.
I think those are the key areas you should be focusing on.
That's some powerful advice. And
Mhm.
I hope students realize that it is not so hunky dory also. And they have to work hard.
They
Yeah.
have to work hard. They have to work hard. No doubt about it.
So, okay. Uh, let's also talk about quickly about the future of AI. What
Mhm.
does excite you, whether it is generative models, multimodal AI, or something else in particular?
See, generative models, yes. So, if you look at my career itself, I had started my career in, I think, long time back, and we used to see those basic chatbots, on website where you just say hi, and the bot used to take a name and then call you back later. I think from that
Right.
then on, I think we went to a stage where the bots are being made using NLP, and today you have generative AI models. And now there's something called as agentic AI, which is coming to picture, which is basically a combination of these agents, individual agents who perform certain tasks to basically run an entire process end to end. So
Right.
seeing the evolution of AI, I think which is kind of getting really, let's say, I would say speedy now. Like it took about 5 years for us to go from, let's say, NLP to generative AI model, and that
Right.
Gen AI model that came out, I think, is now evolving to agentic AI in a matter of, let's say, a couple of years, right? So the
Right.
speed of, let's say, improvement in the AI is pretty, let's say, while it's exciting, it's also difficult to keep up from a tech standpoint. You have to keep learning,
Yeah.
you have to keep
True.
adapting. I think so. That's one. That's what excites me currently. Secondly, how that AI is being used at scale. Like for
Right.
example, there's a company called the Nudge Institute, and they're looking
Okay.
at digital solutions to solve for, let's say, rural India. So
Okay.
things like, let's say, there's a program that they have where they figured out that if you give, let's say, the rural India folks who are, let's say, hardcore workers, I mean, people who work on hard skills, if you give them better eyewear, that gives them a lot more, let's say, visibility. The productivity goes up significantly. The GDP can go up by 0.5% as a whole, just by giving them an eyewear.
Okay.
That's what. So now that eyewear can be AI embedded as well. So what I'm trying to say is that there are a variety of use cases of AI. What kind of excites me is that scale of change that it can drive, either for the good or for the bad. And so it's a two-way sword. I think that's what excites me. That's what I'm looking at. But from my career perspective and from where I am standing, the way that AI can basically impact change in a large enterprise, in terms of improving customer experience, in terms of you having to call somebody in a contact center and then they're saying one for press, one for this, two for this, three for this, instead of you
Right.
having a seamless conversation to solve for a problem without having to go through a human agent. I think that is what is looking, I mean, exciting to me in terms of the AI, the way it has been coming through now. So yeah,
Yeah, the world of AI is exciting, and I think it is even more exciting for students, young people who will see,
yes,
changes taking place in the real world uh,
in early age,
in early
in
age.
early age, yeah, in early
Correct,
age.
correct, correct.
Mhm.
Uh, by 2040, I hope we see some flying cars and even
I I hope so. I hope
I,
so. I'm a science fiction fan, so yeah, I hope so.
yeah,
But I think more than that, I think what is truly inspiring is that
yeah,
I have, at least in my ecosystem, the students that are there today, they are building agentic applications using platforms like Na10,
right,
and they are not old. They're like 10, 12 years, 15 years old kids who are doing this. And so that is really a
right.
very uplifting sign that in India at least, the kids are taking to that AI space, in much in advance. I think that's a very heartwarming thing to see. So I
Yeah,
think
hopefully they'll build even better things than what our generation
absolutely,
has built.
yeah. Fingers crossed for that. Yeah,
So, okay, thank you very much, Abhishek. I think that's all from us at Global R Hub. And thank you very much for taking out time to do this podcast. I hope it was interesting for you, and I hope it is
absolutely,
useful. Yeah, I hope it is useful for our students, for our the parents who want to see their child, develop in the field of AI and do some meaningful research also. So
absolutely. Best of luck to all the students out there, and thank you for having me on the show, please.
thank you, Abhishek. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. You too. Bye bye.